Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
If you're one of those parents who wishes so much that you could spend time at the beach and experiencing the holidays and you can't, find the joy, see the beauty that's around you in those small moments, because sometimes that's all you're going to have.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
School holidays week 1 are over for Northern Territory, Queensland and Victoria. The ACT and WA and New South Wales holidays start at the end of today, except for those lucky kids whose parents gave in when the kids said, "But Mum, no one else is going today. We don't do anything except watch movies. It's the last day of school." South Australia and Tassie, 1 week to go. The countdown is on. I'm here with my wife and co-host of this podcast, Mrs. Happy Families, Kylie. What's the latest, Kylie? Today's I'll Do Better Tomorrow. Are you doing better tomorrow?
Look, I predicted that there'd be some withdrawals after parental guidance finished up.
Are you missing it?
Well, there's just been so many conversations that have been coming up as people have been catching up on 9 now. And we actually had a family friend. She's a grandma.
Yeah.
And she was dealing with a pretty significant tantrum the other day with one of her grandchildren.
Which grandma is this that we know? What's her name? Just first name?
Janine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And she remembered the experience that you had with the teen parents and
when I took them into time out.
Emotion coaching.
Right.
And so she decided that she would try it because she recognised that she didn't have any control over what was going to happen in the situation her grandson was in, but she did know that she could at least acknowledge what he was experiencing.
Right.
And she looked at me with wide eyes and she said, "I can't believe it. It worked."
It worked. Imagine. The parenting expert knows what he's talking about. She was surprised. I love that.
So she had a wonderful experience with her grandson and they were able to spend some really nice time once he calmed down. And compared to what he's previously done, where it's been this very long drawn out experience and everybody's distressed by the end of it, she said a couple of words that acknowledged to him what she was seeing and he calmed right down and they were able to go off and have some cake together.
I love it.
And just had a great afternoon.
That's because this show changes lives, even grandparents' lives. I love it. That's so great. Welcome to the podcast, those of you who are new here. Every Friday we talk about what has made our lives work well or maybe what hasn't. We call it I'll Do Better Tomorrow, and the focus is on evaluating intentionally how we can be better parents. Kylie, my intentional evaluation of this week is as follows. I work too much. Now, and I'm not sharing this as a confession. I'm sharing this because I have no doubt that there will be thousands, literally thousands and thousands of parents who tune in for some parenting inspo who are feeling like they're in the same boat. Like school holidays, supposed to be with the kids, but there are work commitments. And I feel it intensely because I'm the parenting expert who's supposed to be getting it all right. But just because it's school holidays doesn't mean that work stops. I've got presentations to write and I've got travel commitments that have to be met and blogs that have to be written and all the content, the podcasts, all the stuff that we have to produce, it just keeps on stacking up. And if I'm not at work, I end up getting overwhelmed and it just can't all be done. And I know that in term 3, so we have so many bookings in term 3 that I'm almost not going to be home for 10 or 12 weeks. And so I've got this huge amount of drive and maybe even a whole lot of guilt to be at home with the kids right now. And yet I've got to get all this stuff done. I've got so much work to do. And so my I'll Do Better Tomorrow is, I don't even know what it is really. It's just an acknowledgement. If you're a parent who's got kids on school holidays right now and you're maybe hating yourself a little bit because you can't take time off and so the kids are in outside school hours care, or if you're a parent who simply doesn't have the annual leave and so the grandparents are looking after the kids or they're looking after themselves and watching way too many screens, I guess my I'll Do Better Tomorrow is sometimes you can't do better tomorrow. Sometimes you just, that's life. I want you to know that I acknowledge what you're going through. It's really tricky. And those moments that we have grabbed this week, whether it's been a walk along the beach or a kick in the backyard with the ball, Kylie, I've just saved them. Or when one of the kids has come and climbed into bed and hugged us. Those have been the gold flecks in a week that has been pretty rocky in terms of school holidays and dad being available.
You were listening to a podcast the other day and you sent me a new definition for you of what joy is.
Yeah.
What was it?
So I was listening to a podcast. In fact, I've got this person coming up on our podcast. It's not going to be another at least another 3 or 4 weeks before we get to hear from her. But she's an intimacy and marriage and relationship and so on therapist. And she's just so insightful. Her name's Jennifer Finlayson-Fife. I can't wait for her to be on our podcast. End of July, we've got her scheduled for. But she was talking about joy, and she said joy is the ability to see beauty. Joy is the ability to see beauty. And I've been thinking about that since I heard it on the podcast about a week and a half ago. And I love that definition. I don't know if it's the most perfectly accurate definition from a science point of view, but from a practical point of view, I know that I'm happier when I'm spotting those gold flecks, those moments of beauty in every moment.
Well, I guess, and as you were talking, just this acknowledgement that for those of us who are feeling really stretched and really pulled, especially in the holidays when we want to be somewhere, but we actually have commitments that we have to deal with.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Finding beauty in the moments that we experience allows us to experience a level of joy that we wouldn't otherwise have because we just get caught up in all of the details of our commitments.
And that's what I've been really working hard on. And that has been, I guess, the light in what has been an otherwise really tricky week. But I mean, that's kind of it. My older bit tomorrow is if you're one of those parents who wishes so much that you could spend time at the beach, spend time walking with the kids and playing games and just getting away and experiencing the holidays, and you can't because of inflation or because of job requirements or because of just life. I get it. It's hard. I don't know that there's any easy thing other than find the joy, see the beauty that's around you in those small moments, because sometimes that's all you're going to have.
Earlier in the week, I had a really profound moment with our 9-year-old.
Profound. I like it. Profound is good.
She has always been drawn to have friendships with boys.
Yeah.
And as a result, has been introduced to a whole heap of characters and TV shows.
She just likes dinosaurs and dragons and wings of fire. That's really what it is.
And in a household of girls, we've never actually had to deal with this before.
Cupcakes and rainbows and unicorns is what we're used to, right? Care Bears.
And so I am not across a lot of the TV shows that she watches. All of our other girls have watched a lot of the same shows that I grew up with or something similar.
Yeah, I reckon like with Netflix and all the other streaming services, like once upon a time, the kids just watched ABC. That was it. And now with all of the other alternatives that are around, there's just stuff everywhere and it's impossible to stay across it all.
And so as a result, Emily being more drawn towards the more action-packed, I'm going to use the word violent shows in cartoons.
Yep.
I'm just grateful that we have our TV in the main living space and I can hear what's going on. So there's from time to time she's been watching something and I've been able to just say, I don't like what I'm hearing, or this is not a nice show. You need to turn it off.
I don't like what I'm hearing a lot of the time, though. Like, there's research that shows that cartoons today are very different to what cartoons used to be. And I know that Roadrunner used to blow Wile E. Coyote up, and they've always had that element of violence. Tom and Jerry, there's always been this slapstick-style comedy. But research shows that there's a different tone to a lot of the violence now.
Well, there was something realistic. Do you know, there was, I mean...
Well, I mean, SpongeBob I can't even say it. SpongeBob SquarePants isn't exactly realistic, but there's so much more noise. There's so much more busy. The cartoons are so much more active. Like, the cartoons are so intense nowadays compared to what they were when we were kids. There was only so much that could happen with the technology, whereas now it's over the top. I feel the same way. Like, the cartoons today, I just think, wow, man, I long for the old days. Bugs Bunny. Bring back Bugs.
So as a result, a lot of what she watches I am not actually across. But the other night she came in after I had asked her multiple times to turn the TV off. But because I was distracted, I didn't follow through the way I know I should. And so it took her a lot longer to respond to me than I would have liked. But by the time she came in, she was a little bit ashen-faced and she just said to me, I just saw something that's made me feel really sick.
Oh, no.
And I said, would you go and turn the TV off then and bring the remote to me? And as she left, she literally burst into tears. Like, whatever it was that she saw was so distressing to her that it just left her feeling so miserable. So when she came back, I grabbed her into a big bear hug and I said, what was it that you saw? And she said, somebody got killed. I asked her if she was watching a real live show or whether she was watching a cartoon. It was a cartoon, and it was a cartoon that she'd been watching with her sister. And so everyone's pretty good at being police in our house. So if the big sisters are watching something, they know that the little girls can't watch, they'll send them away. Or if the little girls are watching something that the big girls know they shouldn't, they'll tell them. So I didn't feel like this was going to be a show that would cause significant distress.
Yeah, the kids are pretty happy to dob on each other.
Yeah. And so we sat there for a little while, and I said, well, what was the show you were watching? She told me. And I said, and what was its rating? She said, it's only PG, Mum. And I said, well, usually, I said, if you're going to watch a PG, Mummy and Daddy need to be across that. And I said, are we across this one? She said, no. She said, but I do watch other PGs. And I said, yeah, because Mummy and Daddy have told you it's okay. And I said, what do you think PG stands for? And she had no idea at first, and then something clicked, and she looked at me with a little glint in her eye, and she said, parental guidance? You see the big grin on her face as she realised what your show meant. And I said, yeah. I said, what do you think that actually means, though? And she said, oh, parents can only watch it? And I said, no, it doesn't mean that at all. But what it does mean is that if a little person is going to watch something, they kind of need their mummy and daddy's guidance. They need their involvement to know whether or not this is something that's going to be good for you. And I said, so were mummy and daddy involved in helping you decide whether this was a show that would work for you or not? And she said, no. And I said, do you know why they're there? Why those standards are there? Why those rules are there? Why those, kind of parameters are there? And she said, so I don't have to see yucky things? And I said, yeah. And I said, and that's why mummy and daddy talk to you about the kinds of shows that you're watching so that you don't find yourself in a position where you see yucky things. So we talked about it a little bit more. I acknowledged that some of the books that she reads are quite violent. She loves Wings of Fire, which is all about dragons, and the dragons kill each other. It's very, kind of war and combat. She said, but it's different when it's in my head. She said, once I see it on the screen, Mummy, she said, I can't get rid of those images. How powerful. So brilliant. Powerful. Yeah. I didn't have to tell her that. She recognised it. And so while I wish she hadn't actually seen whatever it was that distressed her so much, oh my goodness, the learning that has come from this one experience has literally changed the way she sees viewing TV. She asked me specifically that night and didn't want to leave the table until she knew it was done, to have the parameters changed on her Netflix account to go back to the G that it had been about 6 months ago, because she didn't want to be faced with another situation where she watched something that didn't make her feel good.
So this is one of those reasons as well that we don't want to protect our kids from everything. They actually do need to have life experience, because as they have the life experience, they have the learning, and the learning is where it gets internalized. But they need to have that strong, safe, caring adult to debrief, to work things through, to process with, and to understand. Because she's been able to do that, she's now internalizing, I feel safe when I've got G-rated content rather than PG-rated content. And it was only because she was able to have that conversation that it all sort of came together. She didn't really even know what PG was until that conversation.
What I love about this experience is I am not going to be there all the time.
Yeah.
And yet I have a little girl who's now recognized that there are certain things that don't make her feel good. And she was proactive in that she instantly, as soon as she saw something, she walked away. I can't pay enough for that, to know that my child will recognize and be able to self-regulate in the moment all by herself.
I'm going to add to that. What I can't pay enough for, what I can't be more grateful for, is that she's got somebody that she can turn to. And that's what we're all trying to be, right? We're trying to be that person so that when the kids are exposed to an experience that doesn't feel good, that they do turn to us. They know that they're safe to come to us. They're not going to get in trouble, but rather we're going to help them to process it in healthy, functional ways so that they can adapt positively to it. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon for Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. To make your family happier, please visit happyfamilies.com.au. Oh, you know what else would make our family happier? If we could have got Taylor Swift tickets.
Oh.
But my wallet is happier because websites have been crashing all around the country, and it looks like we're not going to be able to leave the Sunshine State and head south of the border to take the kids to see Tay Tay. And I can't say I'm sad, but they are. They are. It would have really made our family happier. Probably going to have another hunt around today and just see what we can find. I'm just putting it out there. I'm going to look.